All right, guys. So I'm joined by a veteran in the MMA game. He's had many MMA fights, many fights, of course. He's competed for the UFC, Bellator, so on. He's also a coach and many other things. It's Justin Jaynes, man. How's it going today?
Hey, man, having a great day. How about you?
Good, man. Good. Like we just talked about a little bit beforehand, just trying to endure this cold. And I'm sure you are the same, right? 30 degrees in Vegas.
Oh, man, we got snow up on the mountain. I'm excited. The cold weather, as much as I don't like cold weather, it's prime deer hunting season, so I couldn't be more excited.
Right. And I was going to ask you, man, I know you got the big surgery coming up. How's that? How are you feeling?
Honestly, I'm really nervous, man. This is a very dramatic. This could be a very big dramatic change in my life, an unexpected change. After I fought Charles Rosa, I was having some pain in my neck. It felt like a stinger in football. If you ever got a football stinger, and I played a little bit. I played 1 year of college football, so I knew the feeling. I was like, all right, I'm not a pussy. I'll work through it, just like I always did through high school and college football. And then I was booked with Carl Deaton, and my doctor told me not to take the fight, but I was like, hey, listen, it's not going to affect me that much. I had a terrible performance. I was getting ready for Julian Lane. The pain didn't go away. And then one night I woke up with probably the worst pain I've ever experienced going down my left side. I thought I was having a heart attack. I'm an EMT as well. So I had all the common signs of having a stroke or a heart attack. I call my physician. He gets me in right away, and I had two bulging discs to where the left side of my body doesn't move like the right side of my body. It's probably only operating at maybe probably 30%. So to give you an idea of what I mean is, when I was fighting in the UFC, when I go to the PI and do weightlift, I could bench press, 225, maybe, I don't know, 5 reps, we'll say. Now my maximum bench press is about 110 pounds, 1 rep. So I've lost almost complete strength all down my left side, my left tricep. So before getting to surgery, my insurance needed to make sure I took all the other avenues of fixing myself before surgery. Went to the chiropractor for a long time, did physical therapy for a couple months, did a cortisone injection, did steroid injection. I took every route possible to try to heal this without going under the knife. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, the herniated discs they're just, it's nothing that can fix without surgery. Like if you take a muscle stimulator and you put it on your bicep, your muscle contracts. If you take a muscle stimulator and put it on my tricep, it just feels like burning. It doesn't move. It's just essentially just dead muscle right now. And it sucks, man. It really does. It's my quality of life has been really shitty for the last 6 to 8 months. I haven't been able to train, haven't been able to wrestle, haven't been able to grapple. I can't take any pressure. I have no strength, like I said, down my left side. I can't take any pressure on my neck. So really, yeah, this year's been a really tough year, man. Not being able to train, not being able to compete, not be able to fight to my potential, especially going under the knife. Double disc replacement, C5 to C6, C6 to 7. This is serious surgery, man. And all I hope for is quality of life afterwards. And I'm really hoping I can compete in 2023.
Absolutely. And it's crazy, man, because, the neck is not something to be messed with. Right. And, you brought up that, that night where you felt like, it almost felt like you were having a heart attack. It got that bad. How long exactly have you been dealing with this?
I've been dealing it for the last couple of years. I herniated a disc a couple of years ago when I was fighting for the WXC. But again, it just felt like a numbness, tingling pain. It wasn't comfortable, but it's not just me. We're fighters, man. That's what we do. We fight through this shit. I mean, you see guys, getting in the octagon in the UFC, in the regional shows, Bellator, like most of the time, these guys aren't 100%. So, for the last couple of years, I've been dealing with it. It started to get really bad my last year into the UFC. But again, I was on a skid. I didn't want to bring any more negativity towards my name. I lost 3 in a row at that point. And I'm like, man, I need to get this checked out, but I didn't want to look like a liability to the UFC. So I just kept saying yes to fights and taking every fight they gave me. And here I am, 33, no contract, telling all the kids, hey, chase your dream, man. You'll end up like me.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And listen, I know it's not something that you want to make an excuse of, right? I would imagine, but how much would you say it's hindered you? Because, for a normal person, that's something that would be a lot to deal with, I would imagine. But for a fighter, you know, you're stepping into a cage to fight another man. How much do you think it held you back? Because, you know, you just touched a little bit about it. You know, it leaked into your final run, a little bit of the towards the end of the run in the UFC, right? The last fight. So, you know, how much you think hindered you?
You know, I don't want to put a number on it. I mean, all I do know is it did hinder me. I don't know if it hindered me 1%, 20%, or whatever it was. But all I know is when I was fighting Charles Rosa and fighting, Carl Beaton, I didn't feel right. I physically didn't feel right. Not an excuse. They beat me fair and square. I don't think, I still don't think that Charles beat me. But it is what it is. Doesn't matter what I think. That's what the judges think. And, I'm not making excuses. I lost. It is what it is. We're all fighters. You know, they probably had injuries too they're dealing with. And I'm not going to sit here and make an excuse and say, oh, well, had my neck been 100%, I would have been fine. Maybe it would have. Maybe I would have been different. Maybe it wouldn't, but it wasn't. So it is what it is, man. I take my losses with a grain of salt, baby.
And, you know, of course, you seem like a very competitive person. Seems like you want to definitely get back out there again soon and compete, right? Obviously, you don't want to rush it because it's a neck injury, right? When you spoke to the doctors, obviously it could be a little tougher before the surgery, but is there like a recovery time that you're sort of looking at?
Yeah, he thinks that if everything goes the way it's supposed to, he thinks that I'll be back to training in 3 months. So my surgery is January 12th, January, February, March. I was talking to a promoter yesterday, Big John. He has a show in May in Michigan at a really one of my favorite venues to fight at. And this guy just almost ran into me. He is one of my most favorite venues to fight at, Soaring Casino, Michigan. I'd love to get on that card for a comeback fight. With that being said, just think about how I feel, man. You know, if I can get back into training, am I going to be more hesitant? Because in this game, it's a game of inches, man. You cannot hesitate, or you're going to get your head knocked off, or you're going to get your arm broken, or you're going to get your leg snapped here. Something bad's going to happen. So I need to be confident in myself. I need to be confident in my physical ability before getting back into the cage. I plan to fight. I mean, fuck, 223. I'm only a couple fights getting back in the UFC. You know, I talked to Sean Shelby. I talked to my manager, best in the game, Jason House, Iridium Sports. Give me a couple wins. They're going to bring me right back. I mean, I showed up on short notice 4 out of my 5 UFC fights were on short notice. I showed up. I made weight every time. I put on a show every time. You know, Gavin Tucker, top 15 guy in the UFC, dropped him in the first round. You know, I cut to 145. I'm not here to make excuses, although they sound like excuses. But it's like, dude, I mean, the situations I was given in the UFC weren't ideal. I'm very grateful for my situations, but you know, I'm hoping to get back, and I'd like to get a couple more fights. And you know, if the neck injury, you know, we'll put this display. If I get in the UFC and go on a tear, obviously, next time you and I have this conversation, I'll be like, well, obviously, my neck did play a big part of, you know, the dwindle of my UFC career early on. And if I strike out again, it is what it is, man. I have 75 MMA fights under my belt, 50 amateur. That was my 25th pro, or might have been my 26th pro. I don't even know. And yeah, man, it is what it is, dude. I just love fighting. I genuinely love to fight. If the UFC called me today, like, hey, we got a card this weekend, we want you to fight on it for free, I'd fucking jump right in my car and run over there. It's, you know, it's funny. The only way I can really describe fighting is because everyone's like, hey, look, like you've accomplished all your goals in MMA. You've held multiple titles. You fought for Bellator. You fought a bunch in the UFC. Like you're above 99.9% of all the MMA fighters in the world. And that's great and all. But it's, I mean, think of like a heroin addict on the street. You're like, man, why is that guy doing heroin? He knows it's bad for him. Why does he keep wanting to do it? And that's how I feel with MMA, man. It's this year's been a really tough year. But every year's tough. Everyone's having tough years, man. It's like, I'm no different for anybody else. I just, one foot in front of the other and, just persevere through all this bullshit.
A lot of times fighters, you know, things don't work out in the UFC. They move on, they go about their way, and they kind of accept it and they move on. But you seem like someone who you still want to get back there. You still seem like you have something to prove. Like, what is it about it? What is it that you just want to compete with the best of the best? Like you want nothing other, like you want nothing less than that. Is that what it is? Because you very much want to be back in the UFC. It's obvious.
Yeah, you know, and it's no. So here's the thing, man. It's, you know, Ray Cephalo works the gym. He's the president.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So yeah, you were talking about sort of that persistence to get back to the UFC, right? Because a lot of times we see fighters and things don't go their way and they sort of accept it and move on. You seem like you sort of want to right this wrong very much. What's that fire behind that?
Honestly, it's I mean, it sounds cliche and it sounds stupid, but the only reason I want to get back to the UFC is to show my son that, it doesn't really matter where you come from or how bad it gets. Like, shut the fuck up, do the hard work, and make it happen. And that's honestly, it's not the money. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the money I was making in the UFC. I mean, 20,000 a fight is to me, I live so frugal, man. All I care about, as long as I can afford hunting and fishing, that's all I care about. So like making 20,000 a fight in the UFC was pretty incredible. And honestly, my motivation is I want to get back. And because I don't like excuses, man. I don't like saying, oh, I got cut from the UFC because, I took short notice fights or, I just didn't perform well. I want to show my son, prove to my son that it doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck what your situation is. I feel like I've been put in a really bad situation here. And I'm excited to see my comeback. And I want my son of all people. I don't give a fuck about anybody else. I just want him to see me dig out of this hole because he's 13 years old. He's aware. He knows he's going to be 14 in 2 weeks. Like, he knows what's going on. He knows the pain I'm going through. He knows the struggles I'm going through. And, him watching me struggle is only going to make him stronger because if I'm right now, like I quit, I give up, he's going to think it's okay. Oh, because he might run into a lesser roadblock and be like, well, my dad quit when he ran into a roadblock. So I'm going to quit too. Fuck that. I'm going to show up. I'm going to sling leather. And you know what? Maybe I never get back to the UFC. Maybe I never go to the PFL. Maybe I never go to Bellator. But I tell you one motherfucking thing is I'm not going to quit, and if I strike out, if I lose a couple more fights, maybe I'll hang up the gloves. I physically can't do it anymore. I'm 33 years old, but I never want him to think that I quit or I gave up. And I know it sounds cliche and it sounds stupid. Like, I don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. Trust me. I have my friends, I have my family, I have everybody calling me, hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. You did everything. Like, you need to worry about your quality of life. With medicine these days, my quality of life is going to be just fine. But, I am worried about it. I am nervous about it. But at the end of the day, I want my son to see me be successful because in turn, that's going to make him a better man and a better person in the long run.
No, yeah, that's amen to that, man. I think that's definitely inspirational and something I think a lot of people might need to hear. This might be a weird question to ask, but do you almost feel like you're the perfect person to be in this position, right? Because you've hit rock bottom, right? I mean, you've bet literally everything on yourself in a UFC fight, lost, right? You've been cut on your birthday, right? Like, you've seen the lowest of the low. Do you feel like you're the type of person that, since you've been through that, it's only right that you get back up there?
100%. And you know what? Let's call it a slippery slope. And I might be on a mud slope right now, just clawing and just sliding further down. The harder I try, I might just be getting myself deeper and deeper. But until the end of the day, until I decide to hang it up, we won't know. So, like I said, I'm really going to take my 3 months of rehabilitation serious. I am going to train. Aljamain Sterling had a similar surgery. Aljamain trains at the gym. I've been able to talk to him. Sherrard Butler, he had the same similar surgery. He had one disc. I have two. Or not Sherrard Butler. Sherrard? Why can't I think of his name? He's on my same management team. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Like, these guys are already back to training. Aljamain came back and is the world champion. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say my goal is to be the world champion. I think I'm too far behind the curve and I'm too old to come up with that. But to come up with some highlight reel fights and some knock some people out and to bleed in the ring with people, I'm more than capable of doing that.
Is that the overall goal for you? Is that the main goal, is to just, by the time you walk away, to add a couple more highlights, add a couple more great moments that you could look back on, maybe show your son?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like, I really think that I could probably take a different approach and try, wrestling these guys a little bit more. But you know what? I'm not here to Khabib people and land people and rear naked choke. I want to see blood. I want action-packed fights. I want slobber knockers. The funny part, when I was, getting ready to fight Charles Rosa, I brought Jake Shields onto my team. He was coaching me through the whole game. I have Dennis Davis, world-class black belt, Roman Isbell, world-class coach out of Extreme Couture. My game plan was to take him down and beat him up. And then I got in the ring. I was like, fuck taking this guy down. I want to throw some leather. And, unfortunately, live by the sword, die by the sword. I deviated from the game plan and I'm losing a split decision. But, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And you know, it's nothing I can do about it now. I can just try to get better and try to get smarter. And, you know, like I said, ultimately in 2023, I want to get back to the UFC. I don't really, if I had any interest for money, I could have got signed by Bellator in December. I could have got signed by PFL. It isn't about money for me. It's, I came to Vegas to be a UFC fighter. I came to Vegas to get to the UFC. I did it, and now I want to get back. And I'm hungry to get back. And taking a year layoff from training has really remotivated me to realize, you know, when I'm training, it fucking sucks. I hate training, but not being able to train, I hate more than when I was training, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And you brought up the fact that money wasn't a thing for you, right? As far as when you look at fights, at taking fights, right? On your, let's say on your road back to get into the UFC, let's say, how do you sort of approach those things, right? If money's not the factor to you, right? Because let's say in the last fight, right, you fought in a promotion that you kind of familiar with, right? You'd won a world championship there already, but you brought up, and I think in a past podcast, that the pay compared to the UFC one wasn't great. So if it's not the financial, what is it that is appealing to certain opportunities for you now at this point, at this very moment in time, when you take an opportunity? What's appealing about it? Is it the opponent, the atmosphere? What is it?
Are you talking about on the regional scene or for the
Yeah, on
UFC?
the regional scene, sort of as you try to push your way back into the UFC, you know what I
There,
mean?
there, there. I mean, I'm going to be honest, 100% honest with you and frank. There's nothing appealing about fighting on the regional scene. There's nothing at all appealing. It fucking sucks. You don't make any money. You're fighting all tough guys, and you know most, not all, but most of these promoters are snakes. And I'm not going to say who is and who isn't. That's left for everyone else to figure out. But a lot of these promoters, a lot of these managers are snakes. The management team I had prior to Jason House and Iridium was fucking trash. And you know that they took so much money from me. Like there's nothing appealing about bleeding and getting punched in the face for $500. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm chasing the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I'm trying to get back to the UFC, and that's my pot of gold. And in order to do that, I had to go beat some people up for free, essentially. And that's the thing with me is a lot of these guys, oh, they want to get paid. Oh, I need to get paid on the regional scene. Look, bro, there's no money to make on the regional scene. I have fought all over the world. I have fought all over the country, all over the world. There is, unless you're in the UFC, unless you're a high level guy in Bellator, unless you're in the PFL, unless you're in one, you're not making any money, man. Like I think when I fought Carl Deaton, I think I got paid $1,500. Like that, like what? Like I barely, it's nothing. And then taxes, 30% taxes taken out, have to pay my coaches. So we'll say $300 in taxes. We'll say fucking another $300 for coaching. Now we're down to $900. Like
Crazy.
it's insane now, not to mention your diet and your nutrition and all that. So to answer your question, there's nothing appealing about fighting on the regional scene. The only thing I guess the only thing that would be is winning and getting to the bigger promotion.
So it's sort of just like, let me get this win out of the way and we'll pile them up and we'll get to where we got to get to. I hear you, man. And speaking of that Carl Deaton fight, right? You have any big takeaways from it?
Carl, I hate Carl Deaton. Like, there's not very many people that I can say I think he's a fucking snake. It's and we have personal issues. And the way he approached this fight. But I will say the way he approached this fight was so calculated and so perfect. And that's the best Carl Deaton who's ever fought in the cage before. And that's the worst Justin Jaynes, and he still couldn't finish me. What Carl did really, really well in that situation is he played with my emotions. And Carl came to our gym, came to Extreme Couture, trained with me throughout my UFC career. We had the same head coach, Dennis Davis, and then he got kicked out of the gym for some stupid shit he did, which he should have got kicked out. And within 1 week of him getting kicked out of the gym, he's calling me out to fight. And I call him on the phone. I'm like, bro, are you serious? He's like, I don't give a fuck. I'll fight you. I'm like, dude, I thought we were fucking friends. And my biggest downfall is I'm very emotional. Like when I care about somebody, when someone's my guy, that's my guy. And I thought Carl was my guy. And next thing I know, 2 months later, we're fighting each other, and he's trying to knock me off my pedestal. And, he did well, man. He made all the videos. He knew that he could get under my skin. And, if I had to say anything, you think with how much experience I have 75 MMA fights. Like you'd think that I'd be able to tell the difference between this shit. And it's new, man. I've never had somebody come at me like that before. I'm talking about, I don't mean in the fight, but like emotionally arouse me and tell me, that I fucking suck, that he's going to kill me and this and that. All I could think about, like Carl sucks at wrestling. He doesn't suck, but he's not as good as me. And I just kept overcommitting on my punches, and I wanted to knock him out so bad, and I wanted to hurt him. I wanted him to bleed. Like, fuck you in my town. Like, fuck you, motherfucker. Like, and I, again, deviated away from the game plan. And anytime I overcommitted on a punch, he would shoot in, he'd take me down, and he'd get on top, and he held me down, man. I mean, hats off to him for a perfect game plan, a perfect pre-fight game plan, a perfect in-fight game plan. He knew he could get me emotional. He knew he could get me to overcommit, and he did, man. And you know what? And that's why Carl Deaton won't take a rematch, because I've exposed him. I see how he thinks he can beat me, and in turn, I would have the defense for his game plan. And he had the only game plan to, man, I'm so salty about it, man. It just, fuck Carl Deaton. And, but hats off, fuck Carl Deaton personally, but hats off to him putting together a perfect game plan.
Yeah, for sure. And you said it was a worse version of yourself, right? And it seems like a lot of that has to do with the emotion, right? You just highlighted it, right? Is it because it was the first time you ever felt that way in a fight that you did feel that way so strongly?
Yeah, ever. Me and Troy Lamson fought in PFL. He was like 25-0, up and coming prospect. Me and him chirped back and forth. Super tough fighter, great grappler, wrestled at Michigan State. But I don't know Troy Lamson personally. I've never hung out with him. I've never went and drank beers with him. So when we're talking shit back and forth, we're selling a fight. I don't have any issues with Troy Lamson at all. I know I said I did. I said I hate him, and I talked all this shit, but that was just selling a fight. Carl, fuck Carl. Like, he came to my house. We had dinner together. We smoked pot together. We drank beer together. Like, to me, that's a friend. And, he's like, oh, fuck that soft pussy for all that shit. Whatever, dude. It is what it is. I tried to help somebody out. I wish nothing good for Carl Dean. I think he's a snake, and I'd love to fight him again, but he's a coward. He'll never fight me again. That's a highlight of Carl Dean's career. He beat a UFC fighter. That's his highlight. And I'm disgusted with myself about it. And you know what? If I'm feathering a cap to somebody, if his highlight is walking around saying, "Oh, I beat a UFC fighter, Justin Jaynes," that's cool. I was in the UFC, bro. So go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And back to the or rather, you mentioned Extreme Couture, right? You just brought it up. You coach there now, right? Is that true?
Oh, I've coached there since 2009.
Okay. And when you look at yourself as a coach, is it anywhere comparable to your passion as a fighter?
Oh yeah, definitely, man. When I start, I'm taking a lot of guys under my wing. We have Extreme Couture has so many great up and coming fighters that are just turning pro, that are amateur champions, that are transitioning over. I've had the pleasure of Elena Kolesnik, the Ukrainian fighter. I was coaching her for a while. I cornered her in the PFL. I love it. And when my guys are going to battle, I'm as just emotional with them in the cage as when I'm in the cage, man. When they win, it feels like I won. And I love coaching. And you know what? Fortunately, for the last year, I've been commentating a lot for Fusion Fight League. I've been coaching a lot, and that's kind of kept my mind humble, I should say, or maybe not even just humble, but I feel like I'm still a part of the game. I didn't lose it 100%. I'm still a part of it. I'm still able to coach and instruct and get that adrenaline rush, but there's nothing like stepping in the UFC octagon.
For sure, man. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that before we wrap up here. But I wanted to first ask another question about Extreme Couture, which is,
sure,
it's obviously a very well regarded gym, very well respected in the world of mixed martial arts. What do you think it is about the culture there, man? You've been around there for some time now, right? You said since 2009. What is it that they've built there that makes it so special, that makes it a place where talented fighters want to come, or where you breed talented fighters? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I honestly, I believe it's the coaching staff. When you come, we almost have 20 coaches on roster right now. You have Eric Nixick, you have Dennis Davis, you have Roman Isbell, Danny Davis, Ray Sefo, incredible world. It's Jake Shields. Like, well, I think what draws everybody, Colby Farr is about to make a run in the UFC, I think, here really soon. I think he's 1 or 2-0 as a pro. Gil Gordado, Ryan Couture, Randy Couture comes in, Bryce Harley. Like, I could go down the list, and I hate going down the list because I always forget one. And if the person sees the podcast, sure, I don't want them to be like, oh, fuck him. But I think it's the diversity of coaching what brings everybody. Me being a 5'7", Mike Tyson's slugger compared to Danny Davis, who's, over 6 feet tall. We have contrasting styles. I don't fight like Danny. Danny doesn't fight like me. So if a tall guy comes to the gym, he wants to work with a tall striking coach. Boom, Danny Davis. Oh, he wants to work with a short midget wrestler like me. Boom, he can go with me. He wants to go with Dennis Davis. I think it's just the diversity of coaching that brings everybody together, and all the coaches love working together, and it's a family too, man. Me and Dennis Davis, he's the head coach at Extreme Couture. We play video games 2 to 6 hours a day, every single day, and so it's not just a relationship where he's my coach. We're friends, we're family as well. And I think when guys come to Extreme Couture, they feel that and they want to be a part of it, and they stick around.
Absolutely. And it sounds like that's part of what, or rather that seems to be the element, right? That seems to be what, the secret ingredient to the success, right? It seems like there's a great chemistry there. It seems like you guys sort of all come at it from different perspectives, right? You said it yourself, right? Like, you're with your frame, with your style of fighting, you could always bring something new to the table. So, that's something that I definitely wanted to learn about Extreme Couture. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I got to ask, right? You brought up the commentary stuff, right? With the
Yep.
Fusion Fight League, right? When did you start doing that?
Roman is, so I started doing that. I think my first show might've been like for Fusion, might've been like 18 months ago. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I really like talking about fighting, as you can tell. I have a deep breath when I talk. I'm sure you can realize that after our conversation now. So I really just thought, and being knowledgeable about it. So my buddy Roman Isbell, close friend of mine, one of my striking coaches, at Extreme Couture, reached out. He's like, "Hey, I got a guy, my boy Justin. That guy can talk like a motherfucker. So why don't you throw him on the mic?" So I went down to Billings, Montana, or Great Falls, Montana, like 18 months ago, or maybe a year ago. I can't remember. I met a guy named Jim Huerta. Jim Huerta is a comedian. He's a businessman. He was a former police officer. He's an actor. I'm very grateful, and I want to give a shout out to Big Jim Huerta out of Billings, Montana. This guy has taken me under his wing. He teaches me how. I feel like I have a gift for gab regardless. But Jim has really taken me under his wing. He's taught me how to talk better, how to stand better, how to posture better when I'm on the mic, things to say, things not to say, where to hold the mic. There's so many small intricate details. It's like handing a basketball, someone a basketball, and they can dribble a ball really well. It's like, oh shit, this guy has some talent. Now I'm learning how to shoot layups and shoot three-point shots. And, he's teaching me all the little nuances of commentating. And last weekend, or on December 10th, they threw me into the ring, gave me the mic and said, "All right, I want you to interview all the winners of the fight for Fusion." I was like, "Oh, I've never done this before." So, I talked it over with Jim a little bit, how to hold the mic, where, just the little things. And I've been posting a little bit about it on Instagram, and I feel really comfortable. So again, very grateful for Fusion Fight League. Very, very grateful for Jim taking me under his wing and teaching me the ropes of commentating and talking broadcast.
Yeah, 100%, man. And, I'm glad to see that you're enjoying it. I'm glad to see that you're excelling in it. And, one last thing here, or rather before I ask the final question, is when you do things like that, right? The commentary, the coaching, how much of it are you keeping in mind the fact that, well, I'm not going to be a fighter forever, right? I need to build myself outside of this. How much of that is kept in mind?
Oh, 100%. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, tomorrow's not promised, not even in life, but in career, man. I might have surgery and never be able to fight again. Who knows? I mean, there's always that chance of something. So yeah, I try to get my eggs in a basket. I'm preparing for my life after fighting, and I feel I'm doing a really good job in that. The money I made in the UFC, I invested into a company called Rares. All the money I had invested in this startup app company called Rares. Because again, this company takes off, I'll be taken care of after I'm done fighting. As with commentary, talking to Randy Couture just the other day, because he's commentating for the PFL. So I'm asking him for advice. He says he gets to travel. He still gets to be there. He's only a couple feet away from where he was as a world champion. I mean, he's literally only, 10 feet away from the middle of to the ring, and being in there and being able to talk about my craft and being able to express emotionally about my craft and be able to talk about it on TV it's an incredible blessing. And I'm very grateful that Roman and Terrell Bracken and Jim and there's countless guys that helped me get here. So I think I'm fading away from the question again, but that's all I think about, because I after I'm done fighting, I do want to commentate and I do want to announce.
Absolutely, man. I think it's very important. And you know, if you like it, then that's a bonus, right? If it's successful and you
Absolutely.
like it, then that's a bonus. So listen, last question. Any message for the fans out there, for the Justin Jaynes fans out there, right? We haven't seen you in a bit of time. Do you, you know, is there any sort of words of reassurance you'd like to give to the fans? Obviously, you're gonna go through a surgery, gotta recover a little bit, and then we'll see you back out there. So any last messages?
Yeah, man, I just want to thank everyone that's been supporting me via social media, in the gym, just around. I mean, it's funny every now and then. Every now and then it doesn't happen every day, or it might happen once every 3 months. But somebody will recognize me out and about and be like, "Oh, you look like that UFC fighter that bet his whole money on his purse." And you know, and they're always asking. I'm always asked when's it come back, and hey, I get a lot of love. Even you know, I went 1-4 in the UFC. Like every time I went out there, I went out on my shield. You know, and I think a lot of real fans really appreciated that. So for all, thanks everybody for all the support. January 12th, it will probably be my biggest fight of my career. I'm hoping I come out, have a good surgery, have a great rehab. If everything goes smooth, you'll see the Guitar Hero back in action in mid 2023. And you know, for all the underdogs, because I'm an underdog. Every time I fight, I'm an underdog. Every time the betting line came out, I was a significant underdog in the UFC, and I want to keep repping that. And I'm just gonna. Hey, this is for all the underdogs, man. I'm down but not out. And I got cut from the UFC. I lost in a regional show after that. I'm going to try and build my way back, get back to the UFC, and show all the guys like me, all the underdogs like me, that we can do it, and just never give up on the goal, never give up on the dream.
There it is, guys. Justin, thank you so much for joining the show. Best of luck on the surgery. Best of luck in your future of fighting. And, you know, we'll be tuning in for it, man.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take it easy now.